Cam and Chris, number 9. Joined by my dad, Chris Andrews. Dad, how are you doing tonight?
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, let's just get this one right out of the way. The Trump inauguration. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump being the 47th president of the United States?
Before we address that, I just wanted to mention that you said Cam and Chris number 9, and I can't. The Beatles influence. When I hear number 9, I have to go number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9. Okay, I've said it.
All right, number 9. Is that a song? Is that from an album?
That's off the White Album.
The White Album.
And I think that's that. The name of that was the name of the song was Revolution Number 9, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just like 8 minutes of mishmash, everything, Tommy guns, screams, breaking glass, cars crashing, just a mishmash of everything, and then fading in and out of the whole mix is number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
How can we tailor that into Trump?
Well, chaos. 4 years of Joe Biden chaos, and all of a sudden now Donald Trump is on the scene. So
I loved Melania's hat.
Yes,
she looked like a badass bitch, didn't she?
Very cool. Very cool. I think I seen a headline on Citizen Free Press, which is my go-to website for news, and I think it said Melania is making hats great again.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard about the Hat Man. So,
well, and actually, pause that for 1 second.
Okay.
The Hat Man, on the 1960 election of John F. Kennedy was the first inauguration where the president did not wear a hat, and they kind of credit JFK in that moment with killing the hat as far as for men's wear.
I mean, JFK was a good-looking guy, though. He didn't need a hat.
He didn't
need
need
a full head of hair, strong jawline.
Yep.
Last real Chad president.
So, I just mentioned it, historically, that inauguration, kind of killed the hat for men. But all of a sudden, Melania, in this inauguration, she's making hats great again, for women kind of a thing. So, just kind of a, inauguration dynamic.
The 3-letter agencies, they tried to pull a JFK this time around, but they failed. They succeeded with JFK. They succeeded with Bobby Kennedy. But they failed with Trump, thankfully, when they tried to do that.
Well, speaking of the 3-letter, that was one of the executive actions that Donald Trump signed. I believe day one was releasing of all JFK assassination records.
And it pretty much showed what everybody already knew, that Lee Harvey Oswald had made all these very suspicious trips to foreign countries. I haven't looked deep into it, but I do know that they released like certain flight logs of his travels, and that he had gone to certain sketchy places and had do you know anything more specific than that?
I have not, as far as releasing all of the information, I'm kind of waiting for all the people that live for that stuff to hash it and rehash it, and
because it's a lot. It was all documents.
There's tons. I have read the Warren Report,
which is a lot,
which is like 888 pages. But what a lot of people don't know is the Warren Report, which you can buy on eBay, which is 888 pages, is actually the condensed version of the true Warren Report, which was like 27 volume,
which is missing all the redacted information that apparently is now come out. Have they really? I don't know if they've released everything.
Yeah, and again, I don't know, but I have read the 888 page Warren Report, and in that it talks about Lee Harvey Oswald traveling to Mexico. I believe he went to Mexico City. It talks about him going to Russia. It talks about his career in the Marine Corps. And if there's one thing that the Marine Corps prides themselves on is
good marksmanship.
Marksmanship training. So so it talks about that, but it's just kind of odd that a future assassin of the president of the United States actually lived in Moscow, and his wife is Russian. So Marina,
Interesting.
I think, is her name. So Marina.
Oh, okay. I was hearing what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
It's my favorite German beverage, Mirinda. I guess in Egypt too. Anywhere, it's mainly a foreign thing for Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
I believe.
I think it is.
I think Coca-Cola.
It might be Pepsi.
For some reason, I thought it was Coke.
I've got a bottle at home. I'll have to look.
You do?
Yes.
I tried to smuggle a 2-liter of Mirinda back from Germany when I went there. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember something about that.
I found it. They only sold it in 2 liters. I tried to get it back, but I just couldn't fit it in my luggage. And I don't know. You try to, you know how TSA is. You get a little fucking shampoo bottle that's the size of your thumb, and they think you're trying to be Osama bin Laden.
Exactly.
So how am I going to get a 2-liter? The 2-liter. This guy's going to take out a football stadium.
He's trying to take out a hemisphere.
Seriously, yeah. We can't allow this, sir. We can't allow this.
Can't allow the orange Mirinda to leave the country.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
So the Hat Man. The Hat Man is a entity, or how do I say this? A mythological being. So you kind of like Slender Man. You go out in the middle of the woods at nighttime, and be careful! Slender Man's gonna come and get you. So the Hat Man is kind of a similar thing. The interesting thing is that, I don't know if this is kind of getting off the deep end here. This is like something you would only know if you're like me and you're chronically online. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, chronically online.
It sounds like a disability.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it is. Trust me. Growing up with the internet is a disability. I should apply. I mean, everything's a disability nowadays, so I could probably get a prescription for it, honestly. So people that take heavy amounts of psychedelic drugs have all separately reported seeing an individual known as the Hat Man. And apparently it's a phenomenon that a lot of people talk about, but there's all these pictures online that people have drawn of the Hat Man, and there's pictures where they put it side by side with Melania, and it looks almost identical with the outfit. And honestly, I'm okay with it because I think that sets a precedent that she doesn't give a fuck what anyone thinks about her. I mean, this is a first lady who is just so... She really gives me fierce energy. When I see her, I get the opposite feeling of, like, let's say, what's Obama's wife? Michael, right?
Michelle.
Right, same thing. I like, if I was in front of Michelle... I don't know. She just seems kind of clumsy and not too smart and not too all together. There's kind of like weird energy from her. But like Melania, I feel like she could just pierce through you with her gaze. Like, I don't know if you saw her side-eyeing Kamala Harris at the Jimmy Carter funeral. I don't know if you saw that.
I don't think so.
Did you see George W. walk by Barack and hit him on the stomach?
I voted for George Bush, and I consider him a great disappointment. So anything to do with him now and for years, I am not interested. If they say, we're breaking to coverage of George Bush, I go in another direction.
Right.
So
you know what he said about? Oh God, this was. I think it was 20. It was around 2020 or 2021, and it was George W. Bush giving a speech about Ukraine, and I find that he actually sides with the liberals quite a lot in the modern era.
Yeah, he does.
Which is strange for
he's part of the Uniparty.
Yes,
he is. He made a statement. I think in 2020 he made a statement that he voted for Joe Biden.
Really?
Yes.
Really? He voted George W. Bush?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
So he was giving a speech talking about the need for the United States, shilling for the Ukraine war, the need for more funds to be sent from the United States to support Ukraine. And he said that we are seeing a baseless and unnecessary slaughter in Iraq. I mean, Ukraine. He said that. He actually said that. And then everybody in the audience kind of looks around, and it gets better. He goes, well, I guess Iraq too. Anyway, and he keeps going. You've never seen that?
No.
Oh my God! I can't believe you've never seen that.
Yeah.
He basically admits that it was all just to get revenge for the failed assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Is the theory, right?
Yeah.
That's the theory.
That's my theory.
Okay. Which I think other people have that theory too, that it was just a revenge war.
Yeah. The crazy.
As somebody who served in that war, what do you think?
Well, again, that was my personal theory. Was just to get revenge on Saddam Hussein for attempting to assassinate his father, the original President Bush, on a visit to Kuwait. I think years after the war had been completed. But one of the dynamics of that, and it was kind of hearing and reading about it after the fact, is that how do I say this? The press, kind of like the Hunter Biden laptop in 2003, in the build-up up to the Iraq War in 2003, the press was kind of in the bag the same way, kind of a thing, but on the conservative side, on the Republican side, nobody questioned,
nobody
dared
to criticize the president.
Exactly.
And I mean, the Dixie Chicks found out firsthand, didn't they?
Exactly. Exactly. I just read a thing, it was either yesterday or the day before, somebody that worked for Politico or one of the, I believe, online magazines, came out and said they had an article that I think was on the Hunter Biden laptop, and their editor said, you can't touch that. You can't touch that. You can't touch anything bad about Joe Biden. You can't touch anything, and just write down the list. And so it was just taboo. So, they couldn't touch it. They could not touch it. So it was, that's the way it was.
Do you think that the United States government orchestrated, or, okay, maybe you don't buy it that maybe you don't buy that the United States government orchestrated 9/11. Maybe you don't buy that. But would you be more open to them perhaps knowing about it and not doing anything about it? Perhaps, let's say, they knew that Osama bin Laden was planning to do this, and they chose to ignore it for their own gain. What do you think? Because and people don't really connect all the dots, and they don't want to. They kind of just say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," and shut the fuck up. But they don't actually try to hear what you're saying.
Let me say this.
And I'm not saying that a plane didn't hit the Twin Towers. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, and the Pentagon.
In the Pentagon.
The crazy thing is being an employee and a mechanic for American Airlines, I worked on prior to those two planes being used for that purpose. At some point in my career, I worked on both of those aircraft. I've worked on every aircraft.
One went into
the Twin Towers,
and the other went
into the Pentagon. I believe the Pentagon was a 757 American Airlines. Into the Twin Towers was a 767. So, but let me say this: I have always been, and just like the JFK assassination, I've always believed in the Warren Report. I am a non-conspiracy type person, but in the 4 years of Joe Biden being in the White House, and basically turning truth on its head, what used to be right is wrong, and what was wrong is right, and what is perverted is normal, and what's normal is perverted, and the whole 9/11 thing. I don't want to touch that as far as what I believe. Because I don't know. But let me say this: there was an excellent Tucker Carlson interview with Alex Jones, and up to the point. And just a little side note, I subscribe to Tucker Carlson, his website and his podcast. I am a Tucker Carlson subscribee as of about 2 months ago, because I want to put money into the pocket of people that are all about the truth and that tell the truth. So I subscribed for that reason. There's a podcast that Tucker Carlson did about a year ago with Alex Jones, and literally the number of times that I had listened to Alex Jones, because everything you hear about Alex, he's a nut, he's a whack job, he's a conspiracy theorist, he's all this stuff. Don't listen to him. I had never listened to him. And the thing is not because I was listening to all those people that called Alex Jones a nut job, but just because I live a busy life and I don't have time to turn over a lot of rocks looking for stuff. That's just not me. But I listened to this Tucker Carlson
There's never
interview.
been any pictures leaked of Sandy Hook. Not one.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. I listened to this interview.
There's pictures of
Alex
every mass shooting in United States history has pictures leaked by somebody on the inside. And there's not one photo, not one autopsy report, not one thing.
Okay. But Tucker Carlson did his work before he talked to Alex Jones, and one of the things he said in this interview is, like, a month or two before September 11, 2001, Alex Jones forecasted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and Tucker was like, how did you do that? And why wasn't the FBI kicking down your door when it happened? And just on and on. And I can't remember where it went. But Tucker took his hat off and said, dude, you called it.
It's because he was plugged in. Alex Jones at the time was really plugged in with all of the different upcoming terror cells. So Al-Qaeda, I believe, was the one that Osama bin Laden was associated with. And he was aware of the United States having a prior relationship with Osama bin Laden in the 90s. And up until that point, the United States had dealings with Osama bin Laden and interactions with him. And he was aware of that. And he was aware of the, political movements that were going on in the Middle East at the time, in Afghanistan. And also the social movements as well. And the different radical Islamic cells that were being created at that time. I think to Alex Jones' credit, how did he know? He's always been just more plugged in than anyone else. Mm-hmm. He takes the time and effort, and I don't know how he does it either, but he's very good at being plugged in.
If you want to know how he does it, check out that Tucker Carlson interview.
Okay.
It's worth listening to.
So I want to wrap back to this. So here's the question that I've been wanting to ask you about this. So you're saying that you entertain the possibility that the Iraq War, for all intents and purposes, the Iraq War was simply a revenge war for George W. Bush.
Again, that was my conjecture.
Okay.
That might be overly simplistic.
No. Let's say you're correct. Okay. Let's say that you're correct and that the only reason that we went to war with Iraq is, based on weapons of mass destruction that never existed, right? So, or were moved, but let's not hang on that. Here's the main point I want to get to. Okay, let's say that the Iraq War was a revenge war, and that's 100% true, okay? So let's just pretend, right? 100% true, it was a revenge war. Do you think the American people would have been as okay with it had 9/11 not happened. As in, what if 9/11 happening and the whole country coming together for ultra patriotism, what if that was the perfect time to then go to war with Iraq? And what if that had not happened and they tried to go into the Iraq war and the American people collectively said, fuck you? But because of 9/11 happening and because of the fact that you couldn't criticize the administration and you had to go along with it, what if that was then the perfect opportunity for them to go into the Iraq war?
Well, and actually, you're dead on, because that did happen.
Right.
That did happen.
If
George was kind of a bait and switch.
If George Bush's intention, because I mean, how long after he got into office did 9/11 happen? About a year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so the election was in November of 2000. So he took office January 2001. So 11 months later.
Let's think about it.
No, 9 months later. 8 months later.
8 months later. So let's think about it from his perspective. Like, let's pretend that you and me are George W. Bush, right? We get elected, and from the moment I get elected, I know that I want to get revenge on Iraq, and I want to, but oh, Mr. President, the American people will never go for that. Well, what would make them go for it? Maybe a 9/11 type event to control the masses.
The thing, what happened was after 9/11, and it was kind of, okay, Osama bin Laden and Afghanistan are the bad guys. The CIA went in, and American Army Special Forces went into Afghanistan, and there was warfare going on with the Taliban for a year there, kind of a thing. But excuse me, at that same time, the whole leftover of the original Persian Gulf War, which was concluded in 1991, there were a lot, basically the whole decade of the 1990s was embargoes and no-fly zones, dealing with Iraq. So the Iraq War was over in 1991, early 1991, but the whole decade of the remainder of the 90s dealt with Saddam Hussein violating different United Nations agreements and treaties, and again, no-fly zones, and so it was always just, he was always a pain in the ass of whichever administration was in office, and it was primarily Bill Clinton during the 1990s. He came to office in 1992 and up to the end of the decade. So there was always that problem with Iraq and Saddam Hussein all during the 90s and then into the 2000s. So and like I said, then an attempt on the life of the senior George Bush, and that's what happened then. The Iraq War of 2003 with the weapons of mass destruction. A lot of people, they look back now and they go, wow, they didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. On and on and on and on and on. The thing is, though, is those same people probably don't know their history, which is, if they did know their history, they would know that Iraq had chemical weapons that were used against the Iranians during the 1980s, which was a very, and we've talked about it before, a very bloody war where tens, and I say tens as a low number, but tens and or hundreds of thousands of people were killed, including civilians, in the warfare, the constant back and forth warfare all through the 1980s that Iran and Iraq conducted, of which at that point the United States was supporting Iraq because the enemy of your enemy is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
you're telling me there's never been peace in the Middle East?
No. you rewind, and that's the thing. You know, you just keep stepping back. You keep stepping back, and nothing in the Middle East happens isolated. It's all interrelated. Mm-hmm. And you just keep winding it back and back and back. So it just.
Do you think Israel, to kind of switch up the topics a little bit? Do you think Israel, and I guess there's a ceasefire now? I guess there's a ceasefire?
I believe so, yeah. It was signed like the day before Donald Trump was inaugurated.
And Joe Biden tried to take credit for it. I love that clip. That clip is hilarious. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? He says, "You kidding?" It's so great.
Yeah.
Do you think Israel was committing a genocide?
With the
Hamas on the Palestinian people? Do you think that Israel can be considered guilty of committing genocide?
To tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't know enough about that whole situation. And the thing is there that bloodshed, that situation has been going on my entire life,
right?
And it's never stopped.
It's back and forth.
And I mean, if I just look at an isolated little incident, which is, on October 7th, a year and a half ago, paragliders coming in and killing people or whatever. That's wrong.
At the Israeli music festival.
Yeah.
There was a music festival.
That's wrong, and you deserve everything you get. But now they say,
including dead babies and burning children, because I mean they were dropping bombs on schools and hospitals
and warfare is one thing. But,
Israel was dropping bombs on hospitals and schools, and there was, I mean,
but
I've never seen more videos of dead children and burning children.
When Hamas builds your military headquarters under a hospital, what do you expect? So I mean,
I understand. I understand. It's warfare isn't pretty, but I think that Israel really showed a lack of. If it were the United States that was attacking the Palestinian Hamas or whatever, I think if it was the United States military itself and not the Israeli military, I feel as if the United States military would have showed a lot more restriction, as in they would not have. So the United States military, when we bomb somewhere, it's called discriminate bombing, meaning we use smart bombs. We don't use dumb bombs. Smart bombs are GPS coordinates, and there's an exact geo coordinate put into the bomb that geolocates it with a scan of the surface of the earth. And so the precision of these bombs, I mean, is stupid. Mm-hmm. It's stupid. And we use smart bombs because we do our best, and it's all part of checks and balances, to commit to CDE, which is collateral damage estimation, which is the practice of looking at an area, looking at a target, and then estimating the amount of civilian casualties, and depending on the mission that you have at that time, that then decides, okay, when we drop this bomb on this building, that we have intel, we have information from people on the ground that there's a certain amount of bad guys inside of this building. And if we drop this bomb on this building, it's going to kill 10 civilians, let's say. And there is a cutoff number. If it kills more than 20, we're not doing it. Or we have to wait until 3 a.m. to do it, or any number of different it's called mitigation factors, in order to do that strike. I did not see a lot of that with Israel. Israel was just straight up carpet bombing. So carpet bombing is dumb bombs, meaning we're just dropping them wherever they may land. That's where they land, over a blanket area. The United States, as far as at least from my knowledge, when it was pertinent to me, was not using dumb bombs anymore in terms of cluster munitions. The United States military was not using cluster munitions, and cluster munitions had been banned for many years, as far to my knowledge. So the people that I was interacting with, they had no experience using cluster bombs because those were deemed inhumane and cruel. So I find it interesting that the United States military has those standards, and yet the country that all of my tax money is going to, they don't have those same standards, and they just carpet bomb and cluster bomb and blanket bomb. I've never seen more videos of dead children and burned children in my life. And the internet's a fucked up place. There, you can find any sort of gore videos that you want to on the internet. I have never seen more videos of dead children in my lifetime than from the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. And it seems kind of convenient that there's this ceasefire now, and love or hate Donald Trump, you know, depending, I voted for him, and I do think that he is definitely the best choice for the country for the next 4 years. And I wish he could stay in longer because I just think it'd be fun. I think he's a fun president.
A guy initiated a bill to allow him to serve a third term.
I'd vote for him again.
Which would require a constitutional amendment, which is like undoable.
Well, here's
but it only took him in office for a week before somebody did that.
Well, so here's my thing is I feel like all the war crimes, I think Israel is guilty of war crimes for what they've done the past couple of years. I think they're very guilty of war crimes that if it were the United States doing them, we would be held much more accountable. But I feel like Israel is just allowed to do whatever they want. I don't necessarily think we should be supporting Israel as much. Why, as an American citizen, why am I obligated to care about Israel's safety? Can you explain that to me?
No, I agree. Well, I think we have discussed this previously, the attack on the United States naval ship, the USS Liberty.
Oh, yes, by Israel
to
us.
In 1967.
They attacked us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And killed some of our people.
I think 38 sailors died.
Mm-hmm. And yet I have to send them my tax money.
So, yeah.
I feel like there's this invisible force, and that's one thing that I don't like about Trump is he's so pro-Israel. I don't understand why we have this undying loyalty to these people who don't give anything in return. He wants to pull us out of the Paris Accords and all this stuff because we're not getting our fair share and they're taking advantage of us. Israel's been taking advantage of us for God knows how long at this fucking point. What do you think?
I think it's a big as our Lee Ermey said in Full Metal Jacket, it's a big shit sandwich and we all need to step up and take a bite.
You got that right. So before Biden left office, he did a bunch of pardons. Are you aware of all the different pardons that he did?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so first off, he did Fauci preemptively.
Yes.
He preemptively pardoned Fauci, and I kind of want to go through each of these. I have a couple written down. So
Miley.
Miley. Who's Miley? Can you explain Miley? In what? Okay, explain that. I don't know about that at all.
Miley was
General Miley.
General Miley was the portly gentleman that kind of belies the image that most people have of a general. But anyways, Miley, when he was the commander, I believe the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Donald Trump, Miley was not a big fan of Donald Trump. And he actually contacted his equivalent in the Chinese military, the communist Chinese military, and told them that if Donald Trump ever decides to preemptively strike you guys, I'll let you know beforehand.
Oh.
He said that. He admitted that.
Straight up traitorous.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, behind the scenes.
That's a court martial.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So that's what Miley was all about, and he's a world-class scumbag.
And so Biden preemptively pardoned him
Gave him a pardon
in case they decided to
Yeah.
pursue that. Which, I mean, that is I think
Yeah.
that is a very court-martialable offense to say that publicly.
Yeah.
That's traitorous activity. I mean, really.
Yeah, that doesn't really paint you in a good light.
Why do you think he pardoned Fauci?
Well, people got a problem with Adolf Hitler.
Okay.
Over killing 6 million Jews.
Famous German painter.
Yeah.
Famous German painter
Yeah,
Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Everybody knows the famous German painter Adolf Hitler, right?
people got a problem with Adolf Hitler. Fauci is responsible for more deaths than Adolf Hitler. Fauci is the one that signed off on the gain of function research at the Wuhan laboratory that then had that virus escape, and all of a sudden, oh no, it came from a wet market in Wuhan. Ain't too many places where a pandemic starts where there's a level 4 virus research facility in the same city.
Right.
Ain't too many.
It's a coincidence.
It's a heavy coincidence. So I don't know what the number is, how many people died, I stopped paying attention because when it got political on like day 4, I stopped paying attention to what the death tolls were as far as the total number. I think I would be guessing. I don't know. I think the U.S. death toll, I believe, was over 1 million.
Was it? I don't remember.
I believe. And that's just the United States.
Right.
That's just the United States. The United States has a population of 350 million, and we lost 1 million, over 1 million. The world population is over like 5 billion.
It's like 7 or 8 billion.
Okay, so you protract that. You run those numbers out. 6 million killed by Adolf Hitler is a drop in the bucket compared to what Fauci got from what Fauci killed.
Oh yeah.
And then when he creates the problem and then they designate him the hero.
Yeah.
It's like, what a scammer.
Yeah. Create the disease and sell the cure.
What a scammer. Mm-hmm. So there's a classic story of and perhaps I have told you, but stop me if I have told you. There's a classic story from World War II, and basically the head of the French army, when Hitler overran France, the head of the French army was Charles de Gaulle, and Charles de Gaulle went down to Africa and created the Free French Forces, which fought alongside the United States to get France back, kind of thing. Charles de Gaulle went on to become the president of France and served for like 20 years.
Probably be better than Macron, right?
But probably. But anyways, so Charles de Gaulle had a very, he was a man's man.
Pipe-hitting motherfucker.
He was. His country needed him, and he stepped up. The head of the French Navy, his name was Admiral Darlan, and I might not be pronouncing it right. But Admiral Darlan was in kind of the same position as Charles de Gaulle. At that time, France, I believe, I can't remember which one it was. The United States and Great Britain were like the first and second largest navies in the world. And at that time, that was a big deal.
France was a big country at that time.
Okay,
world power.
Again, the United States and Great Britain had the first and second largest navies in the world. France had the third largest navy in the world. So larger than Germany.
Big deal.
So Admiral Darlan has this big navy, the third largest in the world. And he says, well, since Germany overran the country, we're just going to park all of our ships in the Mediterranean at different ports, and they're going to sit the war out. And Winston Churchill said, hey, Admiral, instead of parking them, how about you sail them into British ports? We let your Free French run the ships, and we go after Germany. And Admiral Darlan was like, no, we're going to park them. We're going to sit the war out. We're going to... So, the opposite of what Charles de Gaulle did. how did Admiral Darlan die, you ask? He was working in his garden, and a French citizen was walking down the street and came up behind him while he was working in his garden and shot him in the back of the head. So, when I think about Fauci, I think about Admiral Darlan.
Admiral Darlan was before or after?
Admiral Darlan died like 1944. I believe it was during the war.
Okay.
And again, all those French ships sat in port. Now, there was actually, and look it up sometime, and I can't remember, it was actually like, the Great Britain attacked all of those French ships that were sitting in the ports in the Mediterranean. And there was actually Operation Wrecking Ball or something. But Churchill said, hey, we can't just have the French Navy sitting out the war. Because guess what? Hitler's going to swoop in and grab those ships, and he's going to come after us with those French ships. We need to destroy them. And they did. All these French ships were destroyed in port in the process of a day.
Huh.
So
Blitzkrieg.
A blitzkrieg. We need to sink those ships because otherwise we're going to pay the price. So, and again, that's the difference between Darlan and Charles de Gaulle.
And de Gaulle was before him?
No, at the same time.
Same time.
Same time.
Okay.
Same time. But one took the high road, one took the I'm a effing idiot.
The white flag.
Yeah.
The true French way.
Well,
the white flag.
you hate to say that, but so.
What about Leonard Peltier? What do you know about Leonard Peltier?
I've heard the name.
So I don't know nothing too crazy about this, but apparently he's been a sort of hot topic for the Native American community in terms of his impact and his protesting. So he is actually an activist, and from what I was able to find about him, this happened in the 80s, I believe. He actually killed 2 FBI agents, and he got into a shootout with them and ended up killing them. And the reason that he killed them was because they were trying to arrest him because he had an outstanding warrant for attempting to kill a police officer. So he had an outstanding warrant for attempting to kill a police officer and killed these 2 FBI agents after that and was in prison since then, since the 80s. He's been in prison. And on Joe Biden's last day in office, he pardoned him.
Wow.
And apparently, that is something that a lot of Native Americans have been wanting to happen for a long time, is for him to get pardoned.
That's because Leonard Peltier.
He's an activist. He's a big.
But he's not an American Indian. He's not a Native American. He's just.
He is. I believe he is.
Okay.
I believe
that's
he is.
why.
Yes.
Okay.
He's an indigenous activist.
Okay.
And so he's a big activist in the indigenous communities.
Yeah.
He's a big figure.
Yeah.
And so I guess that was just a way to pander to the Native American
Joe Biden's good at that.
community by pardoning a murderer, right?
Yeah.
A
little now. Pause that, if I may. Pause that for a second. When Hillary Clinton decided that she was going to run as Bill Clinton was coming to the end of his second term of office, basically getting toward 2000, and he's going to leave the White House, Hillary decided that she needed to get some political accomplishments on her resume.
Political clout.
Yes. So they were shopping, Bill and Hillary were shopping around. Were they going to go back to Arkansas where they came from? And so they're kind of like, they're just trying to decide, what are we going to do? So instead of going back to Arkansas...
They don't even claim Arkansas. They hate the fact that they're from Arkansas. Well, they hate that.
And I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, so they didn't go back to Arkansas. They were surveying the terrain. What are we going to do? Well, there was an opening for a Senate seat in New York State. Which New York State is, I would say, political, as far as political clout right behind California as far as I believe
Oh,
California
absolutely.
is the most populous state. I believe New York is number 2.
Coast to coast, east and west coast.
Yes.
Yep.
So to be a senator, there's only 2 senators per state, and to be a senator from New York, that looks pretty effing good on the resume.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill and Hillary are looking, yeah, that's where when we get out of office, we're going to move to New York, set up residency there so that she can run for that Senate seat, which I think the senator that was retiring was Patrick Moynihan, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, but if I'm not mistaken. So, what did Bill Clinton do? Speaking of pardons, there was the FALN, which is a Puerto Rican liberation group that wanted to separate Puerto Rico from the United States, kind of a thing. They were a terrorist operation, and the FALN was involved in like a bank assassination, killings in New York City in like I want to say like the 70s. And there were some FALN guys, Puerto Rican guys, that were in prison for murder. Bill Clinton pardoned them. Why? New York City to get the Puerto Rican sympathy vote, for Hillary running for Senate in New York State.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Bill Clinton was notorious for pardoning a lot of people on his last day in office, and which he said he regretted because he got called out on that. He was basically Bill Clinton was, okay, put your $3 million check in the goldfish bowl right there, in the Oval Office. Put your $3 million check, which make it out to the Bill Clinton Presidential Library, and tell me who you want pardoned. He was literally doing that on his last day in office. And if anybody wants to look up the shining example of Bill Clinton's last day in office, the shining example of a scumbag pardon, the guy's name is Mark Rich, which is I think M-A-R-C Rich, and his former wife cut a check for I believe it was $3 million to the Bill Clinton Presidential Library and pardoned Mark Rich. Mark Rich had never been and this was a big deal prior to Joe Biden going crazy and pardon-thon 2024. But Mark Rich had never been convicted. When Mark Rich was going to be served by an arrest warrant, he skipped the country and went to Europe. So he had never even been arrested. He had never been tried. He had never been convicted. There was no trial. He skipped. And Bill Clinton pardoned him for money.
Wow.
So but kind of Joe Biden picked up that ball and really ran with it,
Do you think Elon Musk did a Nazi salute at the rally, the inauguration?
I hear stuff like that.
Did you see the video?
No, I didn't. Number one, I like Elon and I think he's great. Number two, when I hear stuff like that, I don't even...
Right.
Yeah,
and you have all right to feel that way.
That is just...
You have all right to feel that way. I understand the media is trash, right? It was kind of a Nazi salute. It was kind of a Nazi salute.
Okay.
He kind of did a Nazi salute. And it's like, part of me thinks that, and I was talking about this with one of my coworkers. I think he did it intentionally just to piss off the liberals.
Yeah.
It just seems it seems, if you really think about it, it seems so well orchestrated because he says, "My heart goes out to you," like this. And that's like the perfect little cover. I think he did it intentionally just to piss off CNN and to piss off the liberals and to send the liberals into a tizzy.
Yeah.
I think he did that just to kind of piss them off.
I think Joe Biden is scum of the earth. And if Joe Biden did that, I would think... what does it mean?
You remember the red light speech do you remember that speech that Joe Biden gave where he had like the red lighting in the background
in Philadelphia, and he had 2 Marines back there?
Yeah, the menacing. That
was very that was probably to me like the low water mark of his presidency.
And that whole speech too,
was filled with hate.
Yeah, filled with hatred about Trump.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you know this.
The ultra MAGA people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but red light is psychologically it affects you.
It's aggressive.
Aggressive, yes, yeah. It enhances aggression.
Yeah.
So
you just look at pictures. You just
he looks like Hitler.
Speech
he looks like Hitler.
Yeah,
he's like shaking his fist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Yeah, it was.
That was
just,
such a bad.
When
look.
that happened, it was just like, what kind of fucking idiot are you? You know, I mean, just it that was very, that was a very powerful moment, and
a defining moment of his presidency.
And it really was. It really was. This guy, you know.
We need to heal. We need to heal. We need to heal. In the meantime...
But we need to send these people to prison.
Yeah, and keep them in prison. Political prisoners.
Yeah. And it was, you know, and that was. I was screaming that for several years.
I think Trump pardoned most of them already, I think. A lot of them are already out, yeah.
I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that, because there are police that you know were victims of abuse on January 6th.
For sure.
And Donald Trump pardoned them all. But as Donald Trump said, all of those convictions are tainted.
Yep.
Which is a very good point.
They are.
You know, they're all tainted. Now, as I say, and I was saying for several years, there aren't too many protesters. I know, protesters, but January 6th people.
Got their bank accounts froze. Got their bank accounts froze.
Well, Bank of America provided information on all transactions conducted in Washington D.C. to the FBI.
That's insane.
Without a warrant.
That's insane.
I would never have a Bank of America bank account for the rest of my life. I never will.
Wow.
I never will. Bank of America. But how many people do you know that go to, January, the inauguration? How many people do you know that take a bolt cutters with them?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hammer. How about a hammer?
Or a pipe bomb.
The whole pipe bomb thing. The whole pipe bomb, I'm just waiting. Because the whole pipe bomber thing, that's the linchpin to the whole January 6th thing. When they catch that guy, and they will.
They're going to Jeffrey Epstein him. He'll die in prison.
That's a very good point. And it's almost, if that pipe bomber's smart, he comes forward and he says, hey, he goes to Tucker.
Yep. Either that or they'll pick somebody like Luigi Mangione, who's like, obviously he didn't do it, but they're just going to pick him and railroad him. A lot of people don't think that Luigi even killed that guy. They think it was somebody else, and that he just got picked to be the guy. They've taken the security footage that they used to identify him from the hotel. I guess he was at a hotel, and they had pictures of his face, and people have done really hardcore comparisons to his face and stuff. Say he was railroaded.
He did it. He appeared.
I'm praying for not guilty.
There's I think it's called a bodega, which is like a little, an open-faced store.
Yep.
In New York City.
That's how they got him.
Yeah, he's on the security footage from this bodega, two doors down, 10 minutes before. And the thing is he had like a baklava or whatever pulled up over his face, for the shooting. But he had it down because there's a pretty girl there in the bodega, and he's smiling at her. Hey, honey, you want to get it on before I go cap this dude?
They got him at a McDonald's.
Yes, in Pennsylvania.
They got him at a McDonald's. Who the fuck was at the McDonald's being you're a minimum wage worker and you're going to call the cops on this dude? Get a fucking life. What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm slaving my life away making burgers. I'm going to call the cops on this dude. Fuck that. Man.
I would have done it.
God.
I'd have done it.
Heartbreaking. So.
Yeah, fuck him. He's a... he fucking caps somebody in the back.
Fuck that CEO.
In the back. Fuck him.
Fuck that CEO.
What did he do?
Initiated AI into the claims and denial services, which caused a 40% increase in coverage denial for his clients.
That's not right.
That's not right.
Deserve a bullet in the back?
How many people did he lead to dying? How many people did that decision lead to dying?
That's and again, that's something that we could have a conversation about.
Right.
But just to shoot him in the back, you shoot somebody in the back, fuck you. Fuck you.
That's fair. I want to ask you about Tom Homan. I want to get your thoughts on Tom Homan. What do you know about Tom Homan?
I know very little about him other than he's the director of
Border Czar. He's the new Border Czar.
Yeah, he's doing better than Kamala Harris. But I like him. I think he's full of piss and vinegar.
Oh yeah.
I think he's a hitter.
So since inauguration, since Monday, right? Since inauguration on Monday, 1,300 have already been arrested across 10 different cities.
I've heard a lot of those are criminals too.
Yes, out of the 1,300, 1,000 of them are criminals across 10 different major cities in the United States. He said that when it was under the Biden administration, under the Joe Biden administration, they were actually not allowed to arrest anyone unless they had been convicted of a serious crime. Probably meaning either a violent crime or a high-level drug crime. Mm-hmm. So they were actually not even allowed to make an arrest unless those requirements had been met. But on Trump's first day in office, those requirements were taken out of the window. Mm-hmm. One thing about him that I didn't know this about Tom Homan is that he actually was a founding member of ICE. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I believe that he had served in some capacity under the first Trump administration.
Okay.
In immigration somehow. So he's been around the block.
He was a part of so back in 2003 is when he first started to develop ICE, and it wasn't just him. It was multiple groups of people, right? But Tom Homan was a part of the founding group of people to create ICE, which is immigration. What is it? Immigration. Something enforcement.
Yeah.
Customs, immigration, customs enforcement.
Yes.
He was a founding member. I guess that started in 2003. I didn't know ICE. I guess I didn't know how long ICE had been around, but it's been around since 2003. And originally, it was actually a fracture of Homeland Security, and I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
So I think he's a badass, man.
I do too.
And it's so interesting to see somebody like Tom Homan because,
no nonsense.
Yeah.
No nonsense.
Well, no nonsense, and especially like under the past 4 years of Joe Biden's administration, we've just seen so many weak people in our government. Yeah. And so to go...
Well, it's not just weak. It's weak intentionally.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
Yep. Intentionally, yep.
It's intentional just to get those people across the border because, she's 8 months pregnant, so she has that baby.
Well, and Trump's getting rid of that too.
Exactly.
Trump's getting rid of the birthright citizenship.
Which is awesome.
God. Thank God.
Yeah. What's probably the biggest reason they don't want him as president? That.
You know what I heard, and I don't know how true this is. I heard birthright citizenship was originally, it was only meant for slaves. So it was meant for when slavery ended, it was meant to ensure that if former slaves had children, that those children would be considered U.S. citizens. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what it was intended for.
Yeah.
Was when the slaves had children, their children were then considered citizens and not slaves and not property. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've seen time and time again how that's been abused, and I think it's been abused for way too long.
Oh yeah.
And I just hope whoever is the next president doesn't immediately snap their fingers and undo that. You know what I mean? I hope that's I think in order to see real results from that, that's going to need to stay in effect for a long period of time, not just 4 years.
Right.
So
maybe a constitutional amendment.
Constitutional amendment. I'd be down for that. Why can't we vote on shit like that? Like, I wish we could have nationwide votes like the
Yeah.
presidential election
Right.
for topics. Like,
Yeah.
why don't they just say, hey, do you want abortion? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And then have a nationwide vote and have everybody vote on it. You know what I mean?
Well,
And I understand the Electoral College and all
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
senators, and that's what they're supposed to be for,
Yeah.
right? Is to represent us. But I don't know. It's
the thing is you would have to look it up to find out what the details are. But a constitutional amendment requires like a majority. I think it's even like a 2/3 majority of the states have to vote. Each of them vote on it, and so I think that's like 37 states. The 2/3 of 50 is like 37.
okay.
States need to approve, vote. A popular vote is of each of those states, and 37 states need to vote to make it an amendment to the Constitution.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
is I believe the rule, and that's a high bar to set.
Oh yeah.
2/3.
Absolutely.
You can't get 2/3 of the people to agree on anything.
On anything.
Yeah, we want to give you $1 million. All we need is 66% of the 66.6% of the people to vote yes.
It ain't gonna happen.
It ain't gonna happen. I heard that if we vote this one down, they'll issue a $2 million check next time.
Yep.
So
That'd be a hell of a stimulus check, huh?
Yeah.
$1 million.
but
But then a gallon of milk would be $500.
500,000.
500,000. We're gonna make our money, damn it.
Yeah, you get 2 gallons of milk for that $1 million check.
Jesus. All right, I think it's about time we should wrap. Do you have any other things you'd like to say to the listeners out there, or the people listening to this in the year 3000?
Whenever and I'm working on an airplane and I'm done, and I tell the pilot, I'm done, your maintenance is good to go, have a good flight, and then I always address the pilot and I always say, do you have any questions, statements, or observations? And they usually think about it for a minute and they go, no.
What's one of your favorite horror movies?
It has to be Halloween.
Halloween?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I seen at the Cinema 4 when it used to have numbers.
Ooh.
In Muskegon.
It's all the pretty lights on the back.
Yeah, on old Grand Haven Road there. So yeah, Halloween.
Halloween.
So
It's a good pick.
that's And you?
I have to say Smile. I have to say we should watch that sometime. It's a newer one, but it's actually really good.
Yeah.
Very good movie. Probably one of the best movies I've seen in quite some time, actually.
Yeah.
Very much impressed me. Smile.
Okay.
Anyway, that's my wrap. So thank you everybody out there for listening. This has been Cam and Chris, number 9. We'll talk to you on the next one. Peace.